So we've had a development start in the podcast, and like I almost almost forgot to tell you this, but then you noticed it. So our secret juice, which has been a fixture of the podcast set for a while, it's unsheathed today because the UFC Seattle card was phenomenal, and I think like on a day like that, it shouldn't be in the Modelo case. It should be out for everyone to see in full fashion. But when I took when I took the cover off, there was like there's something in there in the secret juice. There's something in the secret juice. Um, it's been sitting there for a while, so I don't know if I'm surprised by that, but yeah, I think this is probably going to be the final show with the secret juice. I think it's time that the secret juice gets dumped. Maybe it'll get replaced in the future. But yeah, I mean, it's had quite a run, and it's fitting that its final show was for a good card.
A rebrand like the PFL could use.
yeah, it might need that. I mean, we could definitely explore the possibilities, but the OG secret juice is gone after this show. I'm very sad to report that, but like I said, this is a very good send off for the secret juice. We had a crazy weekend in combat sports. I mean, we're not even really going to get to all of it today, or else the show would be like 3 hours long. But we're going to be talking UFC Seattle, PFL Pittsburgh, RAF 7, maybe a little BKFC sprinkled in there, depending on how the time's going at the end. Because remember that knockout we were watching yesterday with you and Jimmy? That was kind of crazy. But, it was a big night. We had the watch party here in the studio, technically. Well, if you want to call it that. But that was kind of fun. I was thinking this, and like honestly, it's worth talking about on the show for like a second. We should like do more fight companions. Like the time we did it by Aiden's store, Knucklehead Vintage, shout out to them. Like that was really fun. And then even yesterday, like we weren't filming it, but we were all having like a pretty good time watching the fights. Like the people who were paying attention to it, and like even RAF, like Brian got into it at the main event. I mean, Jim at one point during the main event for UFC Seattle, he wanted me to shut it off to put on the Colby Covington Dylan Dennis wrestling match. So it's like they're casuals and they like RAF.
Well, the thing about fighting is why it's so captivating as a live sport compared to other sports. It's afterwards because judges, unless you're a judge or something, or like we've done before when we were at events and we're trying to write down play-by-play for fights that we're covering. It's just something you can, as a casual fan, you can kind of just turn your brain off to and just watch. Just watch two people just try to put each other unconscious and see who's the last one standing at the end. So, fights are gonna go. That's why everyone roots for a finish, because a decision you have to think a little bit harder, and and some people just there's just like some people don't really understand, they can't really weigh the significance of a robbery versus a razor thin close decision. For this
they
card,
can't? I'm messing around.
Well, I mean,
we know how MMA fans can be.
Yeah.
Gets a little loud sometimes.
Because I think they just overreact to what's not really robbery versus what actually could be considered a robbery. I think so. This card, for instance, like there was a fight on the prelims between Adrian Yanez and Ricky Simon and
Simone, man. Give it some respect on his name.
But I think that there should have just been I get it was such an exciting fight that had so much offense between the both of them, but somebody should have gotten their hand raised after that.
That somebody, it also goes by Adrian Yanez.
Yeah.
Personally, that's what I thought.
Quite frankly.
I think a lot of MMA fans would agree with us on that one.
Just going to be honest, so.
I mean, we'll definitely get into that more as the show goes on, but like, you were talking about how decisions kind of make people think a little more when they're watching. I mean, especially for this main card for UFC Seattle, there definitely wasn't a lot of thinking that needed to be done with some of these finishes that we had. And one in particular that I can't wait to get into, which I'm sure you guys already know what I'm talking about. But first, we got to get into the main event. and talk about what Joe Pyfer did to Israel Adesanya. Brutally TKOs him from back mount, basically like almost at the end of the second round. Um, and there's a lot of things that you could take from this fight, especially for Joe Pyfer, who now is going to be in the top 5. But I think you have to talk about the former champion Israel Adesanya. I'm trying to say it right, man. I'm trying to get it in my like vocabulary because that's how you're supposed to say it. It's like Adesanya. It's not Adesanya, but like when I'm not thinking about it, it's tough. But I'll get there. I'll get there. But
well, it's I don't know. It's names. They're yeah.
his is easier than some of the Dagestan ones that have played me in the past. But
there's enough difficult names in UFC. So.
There were enough on this card. In the outline alone, I have like 3 different pronunciations in parentheses so I don't screw them up. But, to talk about this main event, though, I mean, for Israel Adesanya, I don't really like what the future holds for him after this fight, especially if he continues to fight, which it seems like he's gonna. But, like, and that's not to say that he didn't look decent in the first round. I mean, he was doing a good job with the leg kicks. He looked pretty sharp offensively, but the defense is just not there for him right now. And these losses have just been stacking up, and they've been getting worse and worse. You have the loss to Strickland, which was a decision. Then you have DDP, who finishes him in the 4th round of their fight, and now he's been finished twice in the 2nd round in a row. Like, that's just not a good pattern for somebody who's at the last 9 holes of their career. And I don't really know if I want to see Israel Adesanya fight again. And like I said, it's not because I don't think that he has no juice left in the tank. I do think that he can win a lot of fights even today. But for him, it's like the heights that he reached were so high. And at one point, you could argue he was probably the biggest active star that the sport had. And for me, it's like if he's losing to Joe Pyfer on a UFC fight night, no disrespect to Joe Pyfer, but like, where does it go from here for Israel Adesanya? And it's like, do we really need to see more from him? Does he have anything left to prove? And like, the answer to that is no. Maybe to himself he has something to prove, but I'd rather see a guy who was that good walk away while he still has his faculties all set, and like, he's on a losing streak, but things could get a lot worse, and we've seen it get a lot worse for different fighters. And I don't know, like, what the point of seeing Israel Adesanya fight just for like paychecks is really for. Like, I don't think that's the reason, but it's just I've been watching the sport long enough where I've seen enough great fighters go out with 4 or 5 losses in a row. I mean, the most recent case that we could think of, obviously he's rebounded a tiny bit now outside of the UFC, but Tony Ferguson or BJ Penn. Like, I don't want to see Israel Adesanya go down that path, honestly. Yeah.
You thought this was an exciting fight, right?
It was a good fight. That's what I'm saying too. Like, I'm not saying that Israel Adesanya is done. Like, he has skills. I mean, you could argue that he did well in the first round in this fight, some parts of the second, but when you get knocked out, it's kind of irrelevant at that point.
That answers my question, and well, not even my question. My it really kind of reinforces my point, because my point is more that I don't really like suggesting that fighters should retire if they even if they've already had their heyday, and if you have the accolades that someone like Adesanya has.
Yeah, now I got you doing it too.
Then I don't think really much there really can be much of an outside voice, maybe within the gym, but much of an outside voice that tells you that you're finished fighting. Because I think once you get to the level that he's gotten to, it's really just, the physical part, there's nothing you can do about that. But the mental part, I think the mental fortitude is always going to be there, and no matter how he gets finished like he did last night, he's still going to be able to, withstand and have the drive and the will to go through another training camp. And really, no matter who he's fighting, I mean, he fought way down in this fight, fighting 14, as still the fourth ranked middleweight in the division, which is impressive in itself, and gives even more reinforcement as to why I think, yeah, why I don't really like suggesting that fighter should retire, unless you can truly see that a fighter, that someone is just not a very good, well-rounded mixed martial artist, and they're getting, I mean, I hate to take this take a stray at Chase Hooper, but I mean he happened to be on the card and he got absolutely obliterated in the first round. Someone that he should have been able to at least go the distance with. Um, that's kind of like my point, is that there's certain guys who you can never really tell or decide how, whether or not they're finished or not. Even in this fight, he really, all Izzy really had to do was just keep just. I know it's a lot easier said than done, but he could have kept a lot more pressure with his lead leg and keep chewing up Joe Pyfer's lead leg, because I think at this point, like, it's pretty obvious that Izzy's he's gonna beat you with range. So you kind of want it to make it close and personal, and you want it to be phone booth s fight, which is what Joe Pyfer's comfortable with, and that's kind of what Izzy was playing into the before he got finished in the second round. I think he just wanted to really just test how much he really still has. To be honest, it's not like, because I mean, to your point, yeah, how much higher do you really go anyways from here? So I think this was really just a test for himself to see how much, how much can he really still hang with the younger up and comer guys of the division. And
I mean, I think you're 100% right too. And that's kind of the dangerous part though to me, because it's like, yeah, you want to prove that to yourself, but at what cost? I mean, you've already lost four in a row. Three of them were finishes, and in this fight, he was doing well in the first round when he was fighting with his game plan. But like I said, he's just lost a step. Like, his defense isn't as good as it used to be. He's not as elusive, and if you're gonna try and get into a firefight just to kind of get that flame back in you, the octagon's not a good place to do that. Like, and it kind of makes me nervous because, like I said, we've seen so many fighters in the past fall into the same trap. It's like they're on top of the world, and they take a couple of losses and they think like, no, I'm not done. Like, I can't be done. And then those losses keep piling up, but they tend to focus on like the little things that they did well rather than like the outcome. And like that's kind of why I said that the outcome in this fight matters, because yeah, you could say Israel Adesanya isn't done. I mean, he looked good in the first round. He was chopping up Pyfer's legs, but then he got drawn into a firefight and pretty like brutally TKO'd. It's like, what difference does it make that he was doing good work in the first round when he got finished in the next? Like, and I don't want to have that conversation a bunch of times if this continues, which, I mean, considering his comments after the fight, I think that he's going to get in there again. We'll see who the UFC matches him up against, and, that conversation will be different when we know. But, and I'm not even saying, like, he's not going to listen to somebody like me. I mean, Izzy's going to do whatever he wants. But, I'm just speaking as somebody who's, like, really admired his career. And I know that you definitely feel the same way. And like I said, I've seen it too many times. Fighters who were so good just taking loss after loss after loss. And, maybe they'll win one, but then they lose the next three. It's like, I don't want to see him go down that path, because he's got a life outside of the cage.
As transcendent and technically sound and high level, sharp IQ of a fighter as he has always been, I think he's also he's also as much of a instinctive, intuitive fighter, to where he's going to feel his opponent out, and he's going to make the right adjustments round to round, catering to how his opponent is trying to beat him during the fight. And I think that it's worked throughout his career. It really has. Uh, but now it's to a point where I think just the division is just more and more. There's just more and more fighters that who who really do have that. Not just Joe Pyfer. There are plenty of guys who are just extremely strong and can put it. And not only they're extremely strong with have potential knockout power, but they're also really good on the ground as well. Really strong grapplers as well, uh, like Pyfer, for instance. So, um, like for instance, I think Izzy Adesanya probably makes a great sparring partner because he'll let you work and then he'll give you he's gonna give you a real test. But when he's in an octagon, like I said, I just think he's very instinctual and intuitive, and he's going to if basically like if his opponent really wants to stick to what they're comfortable with, he feels that he can beat them with that very same strength of theirs. So, I mean, you kind of saw it with the Alex Pereira rivalry, and then yeah, just there it didn't work out because I think he just got away from. You can't get away from what works for you. Like at the end of the day, um, yeah, he is a step behind what he used to be, and he's just gotta accept that. Otherwise, he's gonna lay down flat on his face, TKO'd like last night. So, um, yeah, that's just my thing. Is that I still think he's still got it physically. It's just when I think he has to stop. Let's say fighting, not fighting that, but playing down to what his opponent
See,
is
I don't think
comfortable
he's
with.
doing that though. I think that this is a physical thing. I think that he can't fight that way anymore. Like, because he was doing well in the first round, and it's like he just start. He even in the first round though, he was getting hit with like a lot of big shots, even though he was picking them apart. And like Pyfer, and to be fair too to Izzy, Pyfer is a really good athlete in the cage. So like he's very explosive. He can close range very quickly. But it's like when I think of Prime Izzy doesn't lose to a guy like Joe Pyfer. And I think he probably finishes a guy like Joe Pyfer. And that's not to say that Pyfer isn't good, but Pyfer is a guy who has explosive power. He's really athletic. He can bully guys to the ground if he has to. But his skills are like really accentuated by that athleticism. And I think that helped him in this fight because Izzy, I just think, is a step slower. His defense just didn't look good in this fight. Even when he was doing well in the first round, he was getting hit a lot more than we've seen him get hit in the past. I just view it like when I look at peak Izzy, and obviously he's not at that point anymore. I mean, I don't even think that's up for the debate at this point. But again, like if you're losing to a guy like Joe Pyfer, even if you're trying to prove something to yourself, like at what cost? I don't want to see him get in there again and then have another fight where he's face down on the mat getting TKO'd. It's like I've seen it too many times. Like this is what's going to happen. Like even if he wins his next fight, if they give him another step up in competition, he'll probably lose that one. Like I do think that some of it is him wanting to get into a firefight, but like some of it also I think is just the lack of physical tools that he used to have. Like he used to be able to just elude punches so well, but now he's not getting out of those exchanges quick enough, and he's getting cracked with these overhands and these hooks that in his prime he wasn't getting hit with. And that's the thing, man. I just it's not me saying that he's done. Like believe me, he's losing to the best fighters that the middleweight division has to offer. But Joe Pyfer, it's I don't mean this disrespectfully, but like Joe Pyfer is pretty clearly like the worst guy that Izzy's ever lost to. And that was kind of like what we were talking about going into this fight. It's like, well, we'll know where Israel Adesanya is at depending on the outcome of this fight. Like if he's still the guy that we think he is, he should be able to beat someone like Joe Pyfer, who's good, but does have certain limits on his skills. And instead, Izzy got TKO'd. And to me, like, I'm not saying that Izzy can't win fights. Like, I heard one of the things that people were floating around was like, oh, maybe this would be a good time for a Kelvin Gastelum rematch. I think he could win that fight, but that's not really my point. Like, it's just, what are we still doing this for? Like, I don't want to see a guy win one fight and then lose the next three. this is just how it happens. Like I said, I've seen it a million times, and no matter how good you are, like there's no beating that. Like BJ Penn was the best fighter on the planet for a while. He went out on an 8-fight losing streak. I mean, Tony Ferguson went from a 12-fight winning streak to an 8-fight losing streak, or even Anderson Silva. I mean, ironically enough, Anderson was on that same trajectory when Izzy fought him. And now Izzy's kind of like on that same path right now where he's done everything. He's beaten so many of the top guys that his division had to offer. I mean, he basically cleaned it out. If you remember, like when Izzy was champ, there was a time where we were getting bored because he was just kind of fighting the same guys because he already cleared out the division already. So it's, to me, like when you're comparing him now to that, it's not the same as somebody who's maybe like your average contender or journeyman where they're winning some and losing some. Like this is a dude who was one of the best fighters on the planet, and now he's just taking losses to guys that he shouldn't be losing to. And I'm not even talking about legacy at this point. Like it's just health. Like he's getting up there in age. I think he's 38 now. You know, it's not going to get better from here. Like that's the thing that people need to understand. It's not that he doesn't have the skills. It's just that it's not going to get better. And history tells us that. So it sucks because it sucks that that's the conversation, because I do like Joe Pyfer. I mean, this is the best win of his career, and now he's in the top 5. Like there's a bunch of fights that could make sense for him. I mean, Dreykus would be a fun one for Joe Pyfer. I've heard talk about Kyle Bohalio, although I don't know if that fight really goes well for Joe just because of Bohalio's skill sets. Even Imavov, I mean, I don't know if he can kind of sit and wait around for a title shot after they gave it to Strickland. I think it's kind of sad that he can't do that, but, you know, if he has to take another fight, Pyfer could be someone that's interesting. And for Pyfer, that would be a good one too, because if he is able to beat a guy like Imavov, then I would be really sold. 'Cause that's the other thing too. Like I'm still not even sold on Joe Pyfer after this fight, because I don't think that he beat that guy. Like, yeah, he beat him in name, but that wasn't like prime Israel Adesanya. And like none of us thought that, but like I said, this more so tells me a lot about where Izzy is at. And it's not that he can't win fights. It's just that what are we doing if we're losing the top guys and we're kind of like just treading water against the middle of the pack in the rankings? Like I don't want to see him do that, man.
Well,
And
another
it's up to
thing
him
is
though.
that another thing, I think at the very least he doesn't need. You know, don't think he needs to be trained for a 5-round fight anymore. You put him in a 3-round fight, and I don't know on what kind of card, but I mean, honestly, I'm with the maybe you do the Kelvin Gastelum rematch. I mean, why not? Because
It's not a bad fight.
maybe let either one of them maybe could go out with a win, and I think that's a good thing at the end of the day. Those just two guys who we know that are capable of a firefight, and that's always something that is gonna it's gonna have no matter. I think no matter what, I don't want to say no matter what will have good optics, because it's like if a guy like Adesanya gets knocked out again in that fashion, then that's really gonna like suck, and it's gonna tarnish what was already done, because I think MMA is a sport where people already don't respect history enough, and so a guy like Adesanya, you don't want to see. It makes sense what you would say that you don't want to see him be flat on his face again, knocked out. So,
Yeah. I mean, this is kind of where I'm at with
because
it.
newer viewers, newer generation of viewers going to see that and like what was this guy ever doing in the top 5 or something like that, something like
Yeah,
crazy.
but those conversations are stupid. Like I don't even put my thoughts into that. Like for me, it's just a health thing. Like I don't want to see him keep getting hit like this, because the thing that people aren't talking about too with Izzy is like, this is just his MMA career. Like he's had 100+ fights when you count like kickboxing, even pro boxing for a little bit. The fact that he's even maintained it for this long is quite incredible. And like you were saying that, oh, it would be sad to see this happen again. I think it's already sad that this is happening, because this is a dude who wouldn't be losing these types of fights. if he was still who he's supposed to be. And that's kind of where it lies for me, man. Like, it's not that Izzy can't win a lot of fights right now. It's just that what's the point of just feeding him to either up and coming talent or fights that don't really mean much for the trajectory of his career, because it only goes down from here, man. Like, I've seen this too many times with too many great fighters. It doesn't matter who you are. If you stick around, it's going to end like that. And for Izzy, his last 3 fights have ended like this. So even if he can win one, I just don't think it gets much better after that. So that's kind of why I'm like, I'd rather him walk away while he's still got some of it left, rather than, humiliated and on an even worse losing streak. But that's just what it is. It sucks because, Joe Pyfer gets the win. Like, he kind of almost gets buried in this because people are like, man, like, what's going to happen with Izzy? But like I said, for Joe Pyfer, he's definitely earned himself a shot at one of the elite guys at 185. That's the fight that I'm going to be really intrigued by, because I really want to see how Joe Pyfer can use his athleticism and his power against some of those elite technical guys at the top of 185. But yeah, man. I mean, this main event, there's a lot to unpack. That's for sure. But I mean, the co-main event, we got to get into this because I've been dying to talk about this. But in case you guys didn't see it, Alexa Grasso had probably the most insane finish that you're ever going to see all year, maybe even in the next 5 years, because that knockout, it's officially a knockout over Macy Barber, who's just unreal. I mean, she hits her with the 1-2, knocks her out cold, but then grabs the choke as Macy's on the way down. And like, when Mike Beltran called it off, I mean, Macy Barber was already out cold before the choke was even on. So, like, I don't know. I think it should have been a submission. But the fact that she knocked her out and submitted her basically in the same exchange is quite impressive. And that is one of the best finishes that you will ever see in mixed martial arts. So, shout out to Alexa Grasso, because the other thing is, too, with her, people haven't really thought about this. This is her first win since the first Valentina fight. Like, after that, it was a draw, loss, and then she lost to Natalia Silva. So Grasso really needed the win here over Macy Barber, who seemed like she was surging towards the top, but Grasso cut that off real quick. I mean, unreal. Just unreal win. I mean, that was one of those finishes that just makes you, like, just mind blown. But I mean, what did you think of this? Like, when you first saw it, when we were watching it, because I think everybody collectively is just like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, I mean, oh my God, I think, oh my God, in multiple ways, and one of those ways is that um, nobody was really giving Alexa Grasso much of a chance to get, even get to the distance again and get her hand raised, much less a first round finish that quickly. Uh, so that was what the real uh, other impressive part of it, apart from the actual finish itself, is that I think people were uh, kind of getting ready to put a former champion on the shelf and let the rest of the division kind of keep surging like a Macy Barber if she got the win. So, um, but it's cool to see that it is cool because you have to make a statement, and you have to make a statement in fights like that. Um, when you already have the name value of Alexa Grasso, when someone's trying to make their name off of you, then that's the kind of statement that you have to make, because that was a vicious finish, man. I mean, it's just so like fundamental too. I mean, just a straight left, and then I mean, Macy Barber had no idea where she was. I mean, her eyes were like glazed freaking back, and then
Dude, when Grasso had
I
the
mean, it's
choke,
like
her
she got
tongue was out.
folded.
Like,
Yeah.
she was completely unconscious.
I mean, that was
I mean, I'm glad she's okay,
that
because
was
she wasn't
nuts.
getting up, like, after a little bit. And she's had health problems in the past. Obviously, you remember the Blanchfield fight that got called off, like, right when the walkouts were about to happen. So, like, I'm just glad that she seems to be okay. But, like, yeah, I mean, you're totally right. That's kind of like why I brought up the thing before about, like, this is her first win since she upset Valentina. Like, isn't that crazy too? That Alexa Grasso's last two wins are two of like the craziest moments in modern MMA history. But like, all the momentum, like you were saying, it seemed to be leading towards Macy Barber getting a good win over a former champion, in a rematch. Like, hopefully she was going to show a lot of improvement from the first fight. And this one was just even worse than the first fight was for her. And Grasso, I mean, much needed win. And I mean, she's got to be just like dancing in the meadows right now. So happy about this.
I'm sure I'm not alone in this, but I've always thought Alexa Grasso's boxing is very slick and impressive for not only the division but just women's MMA altogether. So when you're able to put the power behind it like that, just with a cross, is like, I mean, that's the real deal right there. On a co-main of the I don't know, live in front of a live crowd, so it's a big deal. It's a lot of momentum swung back in her way. So
yeah, and I think the thing too with Macy Barber, like, she's good. She's another one who has like a lot of power in her punches, but sometimes on the technical side she can get a little, I guess, rough. And I think that's also kind of what led to this loss, because she was constantly trying to throw these power punches and leaving herself completely out of position. That's kind of how she got hit in this fight. It's just, I don't know, man. Like, because Macy, she had a lot of momentum, but at the same time, we've talked about some of her other fights on this show before. And like some of those decisions, I remember at the time even thinking like, I think that probably should have gone the other way. And I don't know, to me this is like ball don't lie, like in basketball, because she gets this opportunity against Alexa Grasso to really put her over the edge in the flyweight division, and she just gets starched bad. And like, Grasso won this fight cleanly, clearly. Just a great win. I mean, it was outstanding. And Barber, I mean, she's only 27. I'm sure she'll get back. I mean, she's already showed a lot of improvement from when they fought the first time. But, yeah, clearly some work still needs to be done. That's for sure. But, shout out to Alexa Grasso, because, I mean, I think Natalia Silva is probably a shoo-in to get the next title shot, especially to having a win over Grasso. I think that matters. But, yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody was envisioning that Grasso was going to be right back up there in the title picture after this. So this could not have gone any better for her. But what's up, guys? Sorry to interrupt the podcast real quick, but we have a message for you guys.
If you enjoy her handbook's content, you want to see more, consider subscribing to the channel, leaving a like on the videos, all sorts of fight content as much as possible, podcasts, interviews, vlogs. We have it all over here, so thank you. Appreciate it.
We appreciate you, and like he said, please subscribe. And now, back to the show. A guy who might be probably a little happier than Alexa Grasso, just because I think the sunset was perfect for him. Michael Chiesa winning his retirement fight at home, rear naked choke over Nico Price in the first round. I mean, there's not much you could say about the fight itself. I mean, it was pretty expected. Nico took the fight on short notice. I think Chiesa on FanDuel was like a minus 1,000 favorite the last time I checked, and rightfully so. But, I was just talking in the main event about Israel Adesanya and kind of going out in a way where it's not up to the standards that we're used to seeing. We don't usually see fights like this to end a career in the sport. So for Michael Chiesa to get a dominant win like that at home and, has his moment in the cage, always good to see that. And he's a good dude, man. Like, he really seems like he is. I remember, like, when I was first getting into MMA, I was watching a lot of the old seasons of The Ultimate Fighter on Fight Pass, and he won the season where it was Tough Live, and, like, his dad died in the middle of filming, and he stayed and won the show. It was, like, this beautiful moment. And in the UFC, I mean, he's had a really underrated career. I mean, at lightweight, he's beaten Jim Miller, Beneil Dariush, and then at welterweight, which is really where he seemed to find his stride. I mean, you got Carlos Condit, Diego Sanchez, Tony Ferguson, Neil Magny. Like, he's beaten some guys, man. He's fought some of the best of the best. He hasn't won all of those fights, granted. And I know that's what some people were saying about him going into this. Like, oh, does a guy like that really deserve it? It's like, I mean, get over it. Like I said, a lot of the time in MMA, we're not lucky enough to see somebody go out in a positive way like this. And Chiesa, while he wasn't the best fighter,
Well, I
is
mean,
still worth celebrating at least.
but like, why would it even? I mean, if you don't care about Michael Kessler's career, then just don't comment about it. Why? What's the point of
You're
like?
preaching to the
What?
choir there.
I mean, what's the point of going like? What's Michael Chiesa? What is Michael Chiesa getting a tribute for? What has he done? And like,
Yeah, it's like
just don't pay
miserable
attention
people.
to it.
Like,
Just wait till the next fight. Like, it's not that hard.
yeah,
Like,
man. Like it's so stupid to me. I
I,
mean, and plus, like, even if you don't want to like just appreciate the moment for what it is, it's like just think about it from the UFC's perspective too. Like they did the same thing when Anthony Smith had his retirement fight, even though he lost that fight, granted. But like these guys are on the desk too, working for the UFC. I don't think they're gonna send Michael Chiesa out against someone who's gonna like try and maul. Well, obviously Nico Price is trying to win, but like they're not gonna give him like a super dangerous fight and like just completely swipe him under the rug as if he meant nothing to them. I mean, that's the other thing I like about Chiesa too. He's a guy where his future is pretty clear. I mean, he does a great job when he's on the desk doing analysis. So like that's what I'm saying. This is kind of like it leads me back to the main event too. Like I want to see more fighters do this. Like leave while you still have your mind and everything
yeah,
intact. Yeah.
I understand that, but what it really is, and I think on the surface level, this is pretty obvious as to why guys can't just give it up when I mean, especially when they get a finish like the first round finish like this, is because I mean that feeling just is. I mean, you just this is something that we'll obviously never be able to know unless we actually obviously got into a cage and got a finish like that. But this that first round finish feeling just has to legit be like literally the top of the world. Like nothing can stop you. The adrenaline is going crazy, and then at that point it's like, well, at that point it's like you just want to keep chasing that feeling, and then it's like no, I know that there's such a belief for MMA fighters where it's like no, I know I can do this to in bigger spots of cards, pay-per-views and whatnot, and I can do it to better opponents, and that's why that's it's like a drug. Like that's why guys, it's so hard for them to walk away until because yeah, they know the UFC is gonna. It's not the UFC is gonna freaking force unless they have an obviously like an underlying injury or something that like no we can't like because now it's on our ass if something bad happens to you, but
Yeah.
uh they know that the UFC is going to find them a fight, but the matchmakers are also like, well, hey, he wants this. If this is the fight he wants, like this is gonna humble him if like it goes poorly, and then at that point it's like, well, now I've gotten the hit with that unfortunate reality check. Like these guys really are that much better now. I'm not who I once was, so yeah, it's time to hang it up. That's why that phrase face down, ass up is what it is.
Yeah.
Because guys just can't. I mean, it's what I mean, man. It's like it still must be so hard for Mike Chiesa. It's like, damn, dude, like, man, like it's like awesome. I get to go out on top with a first round finish, but oh my god, that feeling is just the best feeling in the world. I'm sure.
I mean, that's why I'm glad he got to appreciate it, though. And I think that he's a guy who's also very self aware and probably knows, like, realistically what he can do in the welterweight division today, especially, like, when you look at some of those guys at the top. It's like, man, there's a gap there. And I think he knows that. I think that's part of what makes him such a great analyst is the
Yeah, well,
fact that
there
he's
you
so
go. Good
smart.
for him. He already has a spot. I mean, a spot as an analyst. So
Yeah.
he's already around the fights as much as he can. So
I think that's good for guys like that too. It keeps you around it and like you're around the game, you're around other fighters, and you're not really giving up that camaraderie that comes with it. So
yeah, so
it's good
yeah,
for him,
good for
man.
him. Yeah.
Really good for him. But the rest of the card, I mean, there were a lot of crazy moments. Layman Douglas starching Julian Erosa. I mean, I like that guy, dude. He's got some serious power and precision. I'd be curious to see what he does against even better competition because I think Erosa is a pretty good test for a lot of guys at 145 and 155. Honestly, I think because Erosa's one of those dudes who's long and lanky. He could fight at either weight class, but Layman Douglas, I mean, that was a good win for him. Belgar, man, we were talking about him
Yeah.
against Abdul Malik, who was honestly like a pretty highly touted prospect who just hasn't really panned out so far in the UFC. And Belgar has just shown so much improvement, and his striking in this fight was just so good, like so good. That's another guy who I'm curious to see what happens. And I gotta tell everybody about the infinite money glitch that is Terrence McKinney going under a round and a half, because I put a bet on this fight that had it didn't matter who won. It was just the fight to end via KO TKO and for it to be under a round and a half. And I was like, no matter who wins this fight, I'm very confident that this bet is going to hit. And Terrence McKinney only needed 24 seconds to prove me right. And, we had the people here watching, and our friend Brooke, his girlfriend, was watching it with us. And she was like, is that it? Like, that's all that happened? I'm like, yeah, is he allowed to do that? I'm like, yeah, no, he's just, that was my favorite. Is he allowed to do that? I was like, yeah, no, he is. he is allowed to just blitz him and knock him out. Like, it's not always the smartest strategy, but it is a strategy that some take. And Terrence McKinney is a guy who will always take that strategy. So I think that if you just want to hit something on a Terrence McKinney fight night, just always bet on him to be under a round and a half, because the history of his career has said that like that will almost certainly happen, whether he wins or loses. But
Yeah.
he's so exciting. I mean, this is a great win for him too, and because Nelson's another guy who's game and he's down to brawl, and he just could not withstand that early storm in this fight like some can against McKinney. But to keep going, I mean, Tafik Musayev against Ignacio Bahamondes. Bit of a controversial fight just because of, I mean, I think it was, I want to say it was the initial takedown that really started to like make that damage add up on Nacho, but like Musayev pretty blatantly grabbed the fence and it just wasn't called. So that kind of sucks because clearly the damage that happened after that changed the whole outcome of the fight. But still, I mean, Ignacio could have gotten up at any point. We've seen people grab the fence before and then it ends up being a non-factor. So I think there's still something to be said for how bad he beat up Ignacio Bahamondes on the ground. And that's a guy too I was pretty high on, and like to see him losing a fight like that, it's not really promising, but he's young. Hopefully he'll be able to figure it out. But that was brutal for him. We were talking about this before. Lance Gibson Jr. Against Chase Hooper. I mean, that was just kind of sad. I mean, we know that Chase Hooper isn't that good of a striker, but he really has to improve his defense because he's not very durable. I mean, he has these streaks sometimes where he'll get like a little bit of momentum and then he runs into a punch or a knee in this case, and it's one shot and he's basically out of it. And he's not a guy who really takes a shot that well, sad to say. And I don't even think that's like, I'm not trying to say anything too about like his heart or anything. He definitely has heart, but I just think like it's a pure physical durability issue, and like I don't know if you can really train that. So like, I think you kind of just have to shore up your defense on the feet and really focus on how you can get the fight to the ground as easily as possible to get it into your strengths. But Chase is another guy who's young. He's got time to figure it out. I mean, dude, remember how young he was when he got into the UFC? I mean, it looked like he was like 14 years old. And it's crazy even now. I mean, even now, I think he's in his late 20s and he looks like he's younger than us, which is, I don't know. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because it says that like he's aged pretty well. He still looks youthful. And then us, on the other hand, the light has left our eyes. It's just, the world is punched us straight like Alexa Grasso to Macy Barber.
I mean, you have a picture with him, so
I do. Oh my! I definitely have told that story on the podcast, but
yeah,
it's been a while. I'll tell it again real quick, just in case there's new viewers. But when I went to Vegas for UFC 264, I was at the MGM Grand I think it was the MGM Grand for the Yeah, because it was on fight night. Because we didn't go to the fights. We went to the big UFC watch party. Met Chito Vera, James Krause, funny enough. That one aged pretty well. Brandon Moreno. But Chase Hooper, I didn't really want to go up to him because he was by his family, and then I saw them kind of get up towards like the concessions area, and I was like, all right, I'm kind of thirsty anyway. Let me get a water. Maybe I'll run into him. And I noticed him waiting outside the bathroom, just like scrolling on his phone. And I was like, I just went up to him. I was like, hey, what's up, bro? Big fan. Like, you think I can get a quick picture? And there's a photo of me somewhere on my phone. You see me and Chase Hooper smiling in the selfie, and you see like that typical tiled bathroom wall behind us. You might even be able to see the sign, but I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to look. But yeah, nice guy, very nice guy. This was like right around when he started. He probably was like 22 or 23 when we met, and I was maybe like 18 or 19. So it's yeah, man. Times have times have gone by quick. But you know, that it sucks to see him take a loss like that though. But he's young enough that he'll be able to rebound hopefully. Um, Speaking of the watch party, I thought I was just drunk when I was watching Tybura versus Tyrell Fortune because Bruce Buffer, he announced the winner was Marcin Tybura, and I watched the fight. I'm like, I don't know how they scored that for him, but maybe I just wasn't watching close enough. And like everybody's on the way out, and they're like calling everyone back in. And I love how Bruce Buffer even keeps the shtick going, like when he's doing the apology. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to offer an apology. The way he said it was so funny. And then obviously gives the win to Tyrell Fortune. Clearly he won that fight. Um, Good win nonetheless. Heavyweight is just a graveyard at this point, sadly. But good win for him. Casey O'Neill returning after a couple of years away, got a nice first round finish. Anyone who's been watching us since the beginning knows that I have thoughts on her. I think that she's one of those people who has a lot of potential. She's battled some injuries in recent years, so to see her get back in there after such a long time away and get an easy win, I mean, just that was nice to see. So hopefully she gets a nice step up for her next fight. And then this is what will end the fight talk for the card on. And I know we were talking about this a tiny bit at the beginning of the show, but Adrian Yanez, I mean, straight up got robbed against Ricky Simone. The fight ended up being a draw. I think Yanez should have won 29-28 or 29-27 easy. I mean, because he almost finished him at the last seconds of the last round. You could argue that third round should be a 10-8 just because he was so close to getting him out of there. If that fight was 10 more seconds, that fight would have been a TKO win for Yanez. So, you factor that in. I just don't know how the judges let this one get to a draw. I mean, Ricky Simone fought decently well in the first two rounds. Mostly in the second. Like, the second round was really where Ricky Simone looked the best, but Yanez clearly wins the third. Thought clearly won the first, too, honestly. Just rough scorecards, man. I kind of wanted to ask you this. I didn't put it in the outline, but I'm just curious what you think. Like, we've talked about this a lot, especially when the UFC goes to Texas. I feel like when you get to like some of these shows that aren't in like New York, New Jersey, or like California, Florida, like places that are having fights all the time, I feel like you see stuff like this more. Like when you see cards in Houston, you see like random referee slip ups or bad scorecards, and it's like Seattle definitely doesn't have a lot of combat sports events that at that super high level like the UFC. I just I don't know. I think that these things. I hate to say that like you should expect them because I do think that the fans, the fighters, everybody involved deserves to have like a higher standard upheld. But I don't know, man. Like anytime we have a fight night that's in like a place like Seattle or St. Louis, just places like that, I feel like we see stuff like this more often than not. But I know you had strong thoughts about this fight too, and I'm sure they kind of mirror mine, right?
Uh, well, yeah. I mean, it was I think it was just a cool kind of a. I was kind of surprised. Like this is only just the second fight of the prelims because it's very exciting. But I mean, it's kind of like just I guess this judges just weighed the grappling and control time that much more, and I don't know. Just these judges are always gonna have like some kind of rhetoric, and it's just yeah. That's why the fighters always gotta fight to finish and never leave it out of the hands of the judges as much as possible. But yeah, it was a straight robbery. I mean, yeah, I think Yanez is yeah, I think Yanez looked like the sharper fighter. Clearly at the end of it as well. So it's really that simple.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it gets better. I think that these like smaller commissions definitely should really start doing a better job when the UFC comes to town. But I mean, I get it. There's a lot of pressure. Last thing with this card that I want to talk about wasn't even really a fight, more so a Hall of Fame announcement. And I mean, in my time watching the UFC, I'm not sure if there's been a Hall of Fame announcement that's more obvious than Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. I mean, this is a guy who you could argue is the greatest fighter of all time, but I'll say this confidently. Demetrius Johnson is by far the most talented and well-rounded mixed martial artist that I've ever watched. I mean, there's people like John Jones and GSP, but I don't think anybody blended all of the elements of MMA as good as Demetrius Johnson could do it. I mean, elite fight IQ, technical striking, really good work in the clinch, really strong wrestling, a lot of submissions both on top and off of his back. I just wish that more of the modern fans got a chance to watch Mighty Mouse in his prime. I think that a lot of them know who he is due to just the awesome content that he puts out on YouTube. But this dude is one of the best fighters I've ever seen. And his run at flyweight was so good, and it was underappreciated because he was beating everybody so easily, and everybody was like, oh, well, he just didn't have good competition. Like, no, no, no. He had awesome competition. He was just so much better than those guys that he made it look like it was weak competition. I mean, Joseph Benavidez was a guy who was around for a long time. Kyoji Horiguchi is always the example that I pinpoint because Kyoji Horiguchi is a top flyweight even today, and Mighty Mouse beat him a long time ago. And he's just a phenomenal fighter.
Wait, so was the flyweight division dying before Demetrius Johnson?
Some people kind of blame him, and not like in a bad way, but they're just like he was so dominant that he kind of like snuffed out the rest of the competition. So like once he got traded to one championship, people were like, well, yeah, but like Mighty Mouse is probably the best guy. I mean, at that point, Cejudo had beaten him, and they had a great second fight. And that's when Cejudo won the flyweight belt. But after that, they got rid of Demetrius Johnson, and like I said, I just think that his shadow kind of was cast over that division for a really long time. Not a very big shadow, because 5'3". I'm just messing around. I love Mighty Mouse, but in all seriousness, because Cejudo was there, and he was like, I saved the flyweight division. I don't know if you remember, he had that whole shtick for a while, and then he left the flyweight division. And I think that kind of left it in limbo because you have probably the best flyweight on the planet fighting for one championship now. And then Cejudo moves up full time to 135. And that was kind of when we started to have like the wars between Figgy and Moreno. And I just think that flyweight needed some time to like build new stars after Mighty Mouse just beat everybody. So I compare him a lot to Inoue, and we've talked about Inoue a lot on this show in boxing. Because I think that, some of those names, they weren't as big in his weight class, but also I think some of it is that Inoue is so good that he makes them look silly in there. And that's what Mighty Mouse was doing to people. I mean, he was just so dominant. Even at 135, he was winning a lot of fights. He really ran into it just against Dominic Cruz because Cruz was just way bigger than him. He's just so good, man. Like, I implore anybody who's like a newer fan who hasn't watched Mighty Mouse fight. I mean, go on Paramount Plus, go on YouTube, and just watch some of the fights when he was in the midst of that insane title reign that he had. I mean, I don't know if I'd call him the GOAT myself. I think GSP and John Jones, their resumes really are hard to compete against, and like they're really well rounded themselves, talent wise, obviously. But Mighty Mouse, like I said, I don't know if I've ever seen anybody who was able to blend all of those skills better than he did. It was just truly a privilege to watch a guy like that fight, and I'll never understand why the UFC didn't totally get behind him and why fans never really gravitated towards him. I just think he was just too dominant for his own good at points, but I think a lot of people appreciate his contributions to the game now, especially now that he's making all the content that he is inside of it. I mean, I love those training videos that he puts out when he goes and trains with like Khabib. He did one with Arman Saryukian, Rod Tang. He did one with. Uh, he does a great job. He's truly an asset to the sport. So I'm glad that he's one of those guys who's really like remained in it after retiring, and this was like the most obvious choice for a Hall of Famer. So well deserved, and it's nice to see the UFC giving him that moment during this card. But we got a lot of other stuff to talk about too, and I want to get to that as well. Quickly, I do want to talk about RAF 7. I kind of mentioned it during the main event, and like this is kind of my major point with it. I think that RAF is doing such a great job at not only like promoting to the hardcore MMA fans, but I think they're even doing a good job with like the casuals because the people who were telling
Oh
me to put on
yeah.
RAF are not like hardcore MMA fans. Like, so the fact that they wanted to watch RAF over an Izzy fight in,
Jimmy.
well, yeah, but like even Brian like was like, let me know when Arman Saryukian's wrestling. I want to see that. And like Jimmy was excited for Colby versus Dylan Dennis. Like they do a great job with their promotion. I love it, man. And like it's exciting too. Wrestling's an exciting sport. Like that's why I'm happy that we're starting to actually see a promotion that can get the top wrestlers in the world, money for what they're doing because for a lot of time that was why all these elite wrestlers were getting into MMA because that's just where the money was, which is funny because there's not even that much money in MMA for the most part, but at least not for the fighters. But that's a conversation we'll have another day. But it's good to see like that elite like college wrestlers don't have to go to MMA now. Like they could go to something like RAF and make a lot of money and build their brand. And they do a good job for Fox Nation. They get a lot of views. So like, and even for like I said for us, we're watching MMA with people, and a lot of our friends are casuals, and like the like the people who are asking us to put that on, like I said, they're not even like really hardcore fans of MMA. So the fact that they would rather watch something like RAF than like an actual really good UFC main event, I think that's really telling. And they've done a great job. They did a great job with this card with Arman Saryukian wrestling Giorgio Paulus. And, that was a big rematch, especially after the brawl, after their first one. And even the co-main with Colby Covington and Dylan Dennis. I mean, that's something that'll get fans to tune in because those guys are such just interesting personalities. But even just from a grappling standpoint, I mean, Dylan Dennis is elite at jiu-jitsu. Colby Covington is a really good wrestler. This is his bread and butter. And, you know, I think the matches were pretty interesting. Arman obviously wins in the main event by decision. I think it was 9-3 in the end. And he hit Giorgio with that suplex near the end that was just beautiful. It was nice to see them bury the hatchet too. I remember I was saying to you after the match that I hope that Giorgio gives the money that he was going to give Arman if he was able to take him down. He said he'd give him 10K. And he did give him the money in cash. They filmed it. And Arman actually showed him that he's donating it to a sick child. And he was showing him like videos and stuff. So like that was nice to see them bury the hatchet and kind of do a good thing after that too. And then the co-main, I mean, like I said, Colby Covington mopped Dylan Dennis. But to be fair, like Colby Covington's bread and butter is wrestling. Like it was a tech fall. I mean, I'll give Colby credit. He said that if Dylan shows up to wrestle him, he would have a jiu-jitsu match with him, which I actually think would be pretty exciting. So I hope that they eventually do that, but I'm not sure how likely it is. Colby, he's been pretty mad at the UFC lately too. I mean, he says he hasn't been offered fights, and he's pretty angry about that. Dropped the whole Trump shtick too. I don't really want to get into that too much, but that one surprised me. But all in all, RAF, I mean, I just want to say RAF is doing a really great job. I mean, they're getting the hardcore fans invested, and as we saw last night during our little watch party, they're getting the casuals invested too. They're building storylines, which ultimately makes combat sports a lot more exciting. I think that's part of why the UFC has seemed pretty dull as
Uh-huh.
of late.
Well,
So,
yeah, I mean, it's kind of a point I've made before. I think it was probably after Dricus Duplessis and Hamza Chimaev's title fight, but just the think the people want to see a build, and they want to see, they want to be sure, they want to know for sure that, hey, even if it's not the most technically sound, pristine kind of, just like Louvre, hang it in the Louvre kind of fight, at least we know that these guys, at the very least, there will not be too much wasted movement, and they're both going to be looking to hurt each other, and just because they're that, just because of who's across from them. And so I know logistically, like, it's always going to be business and what makes sense for the division and the title picture at the end of the day. But there could always be somewhat of a build to big main event fights, and so
Yeah.
that's why people are starting to, they're starting to just they're starting to lock down and hunker down on UFC for this, because it's like I feel like some of these fights are like, even just, even some people are gonna question the matchmaking. If the fight doesn't, it's not a good fight, then it's like, well, yeah, this guy was expected to win, so
Well, that's the
it
thing
makes
too.
sense.
I actually like. I think this weekend there were a lot of interesting storylines. I think that's what made it so exciting. Even like we crap on the UFC when they don't do a good job with matchmaking and promotion, but I do think they deserve a lot of credit for how awesome UFC Seattle was. They made a really good fight with Adesanya versus Pyfer. It had a storyline behind it, had stakes to it, and even the PFL, to get into that a little bit. I think that they're doing a good job right now telling stories in their division. And we've made fun of the PFL a lot in the past just because of their own self-sabotage, but again, got to give credit where credit is due. PFL Pittsburgh was fun. Main and co-main event, that told a story for their middleweight division. Costello Van Steenis just got a big win over Fabian Edwards. I think it was last week in Spain, and that's a guy who's really fun to watch. And the thing is, now they basically a week later they have almost like a little middleweight tournament going. Main event, you had Johnny Eblen versus Brian Battle, and then the co-main was Impa Kasanganai versus
And I'm
Dalton
sorry,
Rasta.
but that main event, I mean, that was a drubbing of Brian Battle, dude. Like, I mean,
I mean, I'm
Johnny
glad that
Ablin
Johnny
wiped
Eblen
the
showed that
floor
though.
with him.
Eblen's good. I've been saying this for a
That
while.
was
Like,
like, and that's why,
even when he
I
was in
mean,
Bellator, man, I always wanted to see how he would do against the top
because
talent.
Brian guy like Brian Battle, he wants to strike, and Eblin wants to. Yeah, Eblin can do that too, but Eblin, it showed it with the wrestling, and that's why wrestling is like such a strong base for MMA,
Let's
anyways,
wrestle.
and it's wrestle,
I don't
brother.
know
I
why I always think of that. Let's wrestle. Come on, brother. Let's
mean,
wrestle.
I mean, it's so to tie RAF into that as well, and why you guys have at least they have an avenue now if they just want to wrestle, and where it's like, I mean, hey, like if your base is as a mixed martial artist is wrestling, like, all right, it's a good start, but every fight it starts on the feet, so like you gotta have some hands, and you have to be able to take a punch as well. So not everyone's cut and built for that. So that's why it's good that there's an avenue, and then the guys who are about, like, even Joe Pyfer as well, even the guys who are about striking as well, and uh are willing to get into that phone booth kind of action. They're willing to get into the clinch, and just keep the pressure up against the cage. Um, they're always gonna have that wrestling in their back pocket, to where, I mean, if you're Johnny Eblen and you can just freaking ragdoll Brian Battle over and over, then there's not gonna be many guys who are going to, you know, take whatever title you might have to you. So that's the case with Johnny Eblen here, and why he's been such a dominant champion for. I mean, he came like,
Well, I mean, he
yeah.
lost to Van Steenis before
Well, yeah,
that.
okay, yeah. That's really my point. Why a guy like Johnny Eblen will still get a main event, because he has that pedigree already, and he was he was Bellator's champion, and then the Inception happened,
I
and
think he
then
won a couple maybe one or two fights after that too. The Van Steenis fight was relatively recent. I haven't been, like I gotta admit, like PFL sometimes is a bit like exhausting to follow. just because of all the changes that they make constantly. But Johnny Eblen, like just speaking on him, I mean, he's so good. Like I don't think people realize it because it's just he doesn't have the
No,
eyeballs on him, man.
I really, yeah. I think I think this guy. I mean, after last night, I think like now, like PFL really needs to take like go all the way as much as they can with him before.
I would love to see the rematch with Van Steenis. I think that's still the fight to make.
Yeah,
Even though
absolutely.
Kasanganai, he knocked Dalton Rost out cold in the co-main, and I still would rather see Johnny Eblen fight Van Steenis because I just think there's a rivalry there, man. And Van Steenis wants that rematch too because a lot of people thought the first fight it was a bit of a fluke the way he finished him. I don't really think that. I think that Van Steenis is almost like the PFL's version of Dricus Duplessis. I just think he finds wacky ways to win. Like
I mean,
even when he fought Fabian Edwards in Spain, like that finish was just so, like he knows how to seize an opportunity better than like anybody. Because
yeah,
Fabian had him up against the cage and like was in that just in the middle of the shot, and he's just hitting him like. And once he realized he could hit Fabian, he just kept going until he knocked him out. Like this is a dude who finds ways to win, and that's how he beat Johnny Eblen the first time. So
yeah,
like
and
I would
then
love to
so
see it.
like, I just yeah, I think you made a good point about just the storytelling and whatnot because on Brian Battle's case, I think I
Well, if he
think
would have won, that would have been a story too, because it's like he's had an
yeah,
interesting run after the UFC.
after that speech after his last win, like I think a lot of people were really gravitating towards him and just the fact that he was in UFC, he was an Ultimate Fighter and got the notice and the buzz from that. Like now the PFL, they get a hold of him, and so they now he they see the momentum that he built before this fight, and so it just made a lot of sense, and the stars aligned, and just I mean, at the very least, you got one of the best finishes of the year in all of MMA, in my opinion, Johnny Eblin. And that's just such a testament to the kind of fighter Johnny Eblin is and has been, and why he was the champion for as long as he was, and so yeah,
Yeah,
that's
man.
just how I feel. I thought this was epic.
I mean, they had a great night. The PFL had a really great night, and I don't know how their ratings were. I mean, they were. This is the first time they went head to head with the UFC since like the ESPN deal for the UFC, I think.
That's really good.
So, I mean, it shows a lot that they're even willing to do it. I'm sure that they got some eyeballs on it because the main event was after the UFC main event. But it did intersect, so I'd be curious like what those numbers look like. But we make fun of the PFL sometimes, and we've done that in the past because they've really brought it upon themselves. But I do gotta say, I mean, they have their new CEO, John Martin, and I think he's done a pretty good job so far. I mean, you have two cards now in a row that were. They sold tickets, which was actually a pretty hard thing for the PFL to do in the past. But they're selling tickets and they're making people care about the storylines. Right now it's mainly the middleweight division, and I wouldn't even call them lucky. I would say it's a good thing that they have a decent amount of talent at 185 right now. I mean, you have guys like Johnny Evelyn and Costello Van Steenis who you could argue would actually be really good if they were in the UFC. Um, but in a way, like I'm glad that they're not because we need somebody to compete with them, even if it's right now only once or twice a year. The PFL put on a good event, and they deserve a lot of credit for that. And right now, I'm excited to see what happens in their middleweight division, and I will be following it closely because they've given me a reason to, and I like their trajectory right now. I just don't know, like I said, I just don't know if the PFL brand can be saved like as a name. And I know John Martin was on Ariel's show, and he was talking about how they're mulling a full rebrand, and I think that would probably be a smart move for them because I think the damage that was done to the PFL's reputation after the Bellator merger and the Francis deal, I think that it's going to be hard for MMA fans to overlook that, even if they're doing all the right things, which they really have been this year. Um, I just think that they do need to kind of change things in terms of the name if they want to really start to compete with the UFC again, like they were able to in the past. But yeah, man, I mean, we'll see how that goes. But I'll definitely be paying attention to what happens in their middleweight division. Whether they make Van Steenis versus Eblin or Van Steenis versus Kasanganai, I don't think they could really go in wrong direction either way, because those are both really fun fights. But yeah, definitely keep your eyes on that. And, this is the price of having an amazing combat sports weekend. Next weekend in combat sports is just kind of like dull, dead in the water. I mean, we have an Apex card, Moicano versus Chris Duncan. I mean, that's a good fight. Should it be a main event? That's a whole nother story. But, it's the Apex. It's what you should expect at this point from the UFC when it comes to an Apex card. I don't think we'll do a recap on it, honestly, just because I think next Sunday, too, is Easter. So we'll probably take the week off for that. But I know you're working on an interview right now, so we'll probably get that up next weekend if I had to guess. But either way, that'll probably be the next video we put out. So stay tuned for that. We're also working on a pretty big, longer form video over the next couple of months here. And we'll talk about that more as time goes on. But until next time, guys, it's been real. See y'all.
Feel just like a superstar. Doing all these drugs, I don't think I'm gonna see tomorrow. Living fast, brand new dash up in a foreign car. It's the type of shit that you be doing when you going hard.